What if the greatest secret of the Knights Templar wasn't a relic or a treasure or a scroll? What if the Vatican's true fear, the reason for the midnight arrests and public executions, was something living, breathing? What if what they tried to erase was a bloodline? Not just noble, not just holy, but dangerous, because it survived. And it still might. Take a breath. Let your pulse settle. Because this story isn't about fantasy or wild conspiracy or dusty relics buried beneath old churches. It's about inheritance, memory, and the stubborn refusal of one line of descent to vanish quietly into the pages of history. There are whispers always, in monasteries, in Masonic lodges, in the margins of old genealogies. Whispers that the Knights Templar didn't vanish, they transformed. That their mission didn't end at the stake, it was protected in silence behind blood and oath. Tonight you'll hear what those whispers suggest, that somewhere between the Vatican's shadows and Europe's royal corridors, a lineage was hidden. That this lineage born of sacred vows and political betrayal carries not just the memory of the temple but its future. Forget what you think you know about Templar treasure. The real secret may have walked away in flesh and bone, passed from mother to child, cloaked in marriages, erased from archives, and quietly protected by those who knew its weight. You won't find it in official church histories, but in the burned letters, in the redacted scrolls, in the unbroken silence of those who vanished, the outline remains. This is not a tale of myth. It's a trail of evidence, thin, fragmented, contested, but traceable. And the further you follow it, the more a troubling question emerges. Did the Vatican bury a bloodline, or try to protect the world from what it could become? Before we venture further into the shadows, take a moment to subscribe, so you never miss a secret that history has tried to forget. It began as a quiet October evening in 1307. Across the Kingdom of France, the Templars went about their routines. Evening prayers, records compiled by candlelight, the slow clatter of armor being stored. Horses were watered, wine was poured. No one knew they were about to vanish. At dawn, King Philip IV unleashed a carefully orchestrated operation, years in the making. Soldiers, scribes, inquisitors all moved in unison. Templar commanderies were surrounded, doors broken, monks dragged from their beds. By the end of the day, hundreds were in chains, and by the end of the year, most would confess under torture to crimes as vague as heresy and as damning as spitting on the cross. But here's what no one talks about. Gold wasn't found. No vaults were uncovered. The famed Templar treasure, if it ever existed, seemed to vanish just hours before the arrests. How convenient. But even stranger was the type of questions the inquisitors asked. Some records preserved through duplication in off-site archives hint at an unusual pattern. Several of the interrogations turned not to relics or rituals, but to families. Lineages, specific women of noble birth, sons baptized in secret, daughters fostered in convents. There were questions about marriages, about heirs. It was as if someone behind the legal pretext was searching not for loot, but for blood. This wasn't the first time Philip IV had leaned on the church to secure his ambitions. His wars with the papacy are legendary, especially his infamous arrest of Pope Boniface VIII, a pontiff who died in custody not long after. The puppet pope who followed Clement V conveniently resided not in Rome, but in Avignon under Philip's thumb. This alignment between French monarchy and Vatican authority created the perfect machinery for erasure: heresy trials, excommunications, burnings, and behind it all, a silence about what wasn't found. One obscure detail slipped through the cracks of time, a letter buried deep in the Vatican's registers referencing a delicate matter tied to the temple's fall, not financial, but genealogical. The letter is vague, almost paranoid in tone. It hints that some information is better left uncopied. Scholars who've attempted to access the original manuscript have been denied. Its digital catalog listing is marked restricted and odd classification for a document supposedly unrelated to any known dogma or canon law. It begs the question, what kind of bloodline would terrify both crown and church? The Templars were not supposed to marry, but historical records show otherwise. Exceptions were made. The order had noble sponsors, and in some regions, particularly in the East, alliances by blood were considered necessary for political survival. If a child was born from such a union, especially one involving a powerful house, it could upend loyalties. It could stake a claim. Let's zoom in on one location, the commandery at La Rochelle. This port was not only a major naval base, but also a known escape point for Templar vessels. Eyewitness accounts from 1307 report ships fleeing just days before the arrests. Not galleons weighed down with gold, but small swift craft, crewed it seems with specific passengers. There's no mention of treasure manifests, but there are scattered references to protected cargo. Some theories suggest relics, others scrolls, and a more whispered possibility, protected persons. One chronicler, a monk from Limoges, wrote cryptically of those who carried the seed of the temple being ferried west beyond the reach of Rome. It could be metaphor. It could be nothing. But in light of later claims, families in Portugal, Scotland, and even the Basque country asserting descent from Templar lines, it reads differently. You may wonder why no one spoke louder if such descendants existed, but ask yourself, would you? In a time when heresy burned hotter than justice, to claim blood ties to an outlawed brotherhood was to invite ruin. And yet some families preserved the possibility through symbols, mottos, coats of arms that never quite matched any known lineage. Clues hidden in plain sight. There's also the strange case of the Sudarium document, a scroll allegedly recovered in Aragon in the 1700s, containing fragmented genealogies matching known Templar founders. While scholars dismiss it as a forgery, a few details in its margins correspond to real, obscure, noble lines.